All right, let's just get right into it. Landing a senior software engineering job at a place like Google or Meta, it's tough. I mean, really tough. These interviews are built to test way more than just your coding skills. They're looking at how you think about architecture, your real world experience, and yeah, how you handle some serious pressure. It's a high stakes game, for sure.
So, what's the secret sauce here? What's that one thing that separates a candidate who walks away with an offer from one who doesn't? Let me tell you, it's not some kind of magic coding gene. It all comes down to being prepared and, more importantly, having a structured game plan for every single part of that interview process.
Now, take a look at this because it's super revealing. This is what a modern tech interview actually looks like. Yeah, coding is the biggest slice of the pie at 40%, but that means 60% of it isn't coding. System design, object-oriented design, and even those behavioral questions make up a massive part of your final score. You absolutely have to be a well-rounded candidate. To get you there, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We just talked about the modern interview. Next up, we're going to lay out a 12-week bootcamp plan. From there, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of mastering core concepts and designing for massive scale. And we'll wrap it all up with how to nail that behavioral interview and really prove your experience. Look, a goal this big needs a real plan. If you just try to cram everything in at the last minute, you're just setting yourself up for burnout. The key, the absolute key, is a structured 12-week plan that builds your skills up logically and keeps you focused, especially on those days where you just don't feel like it. So here's what that timeline actually looks like. You kick things off with the fundamentals, data structures, algorithms for the first 3 weeks. Then you spend a solid 5 weeks just grinding out coding problems to build that muscle memory. It's only after that foundation is set that you shift to the big picture stuff, system design, OS concepts, and you finish strong with object-oriented design. It's a marathon, people, not a sprint. For a senior role, knowing how to reverse a linked list, well, that's just the price of admission. That's not what gets you the job. Interviewers expect you to show a much deeper understanding of software architecture principles, the things that lead to code that's actually maintainable, scalable, and, doesn't fall over. And that leads us right to SOLID. It's an acronym for 5 design principles that are, frankly, foundational. We're talking single responsibility, open-closed, and all the rest. Mastering these is pretty much non-negotiable. It shows your interviewer that you're thinking about the long-term health of the code, not just patching together a quick fix. Let's just zoom in on that first letter, the S, for the single responsibility principle. It sounds so simple, right? A class should have only one reason to change. But it's actually profound. It means a class should do one thing and do that one thing really well. Why should you care? Because this is what leads to code that's easier to test and way easier to maintain down the road. And this example just nails the point. Check it out. On the left, this bad class knows about its data, and it knows how to print itself to the console. But what if you want to print to a file instead, or send it in an email? You'd have to go in and change the book class itself. The after on the right is so much better. The book class just holds data. A totally separate book printer handles the output. It's clean, it's decoupled, and it's way more flexible. Okay, now for the big one. Let's talk about the single biggest thing that separates senior engineers from everyone else: system design. This is where you have to architect huge, large-scale services. Think designing a news feed or a ride-sharing app from scratch. It's all about thinking at that macro level. You hear these terms thrown around all the time, right? High-level design and low-level design. And a super common question is, what's the actual difference? They're both critical, but they operate at totally different altitudes. And knowing how to separate them is key to giving a great answer in that system design interview. This table breaks it down perfectly. I mean, think of it like this. High-level design is the architect's blueprint for the entire skyscraper. It shows you where the major systems go, plumbing, electrical, elevators, and how they all connect. Low-level design? That's the detailed floor plan for one single apartment. It shows you the exact classes, the methods, the logic inside that one component. You always start with the blueprint, then you zoom into the rooms. All right, so your technical skills might get your foot in the door, but it's showing your experience, your impact, and your fit with the team that's going to close the deal. And that's exactly what the behavioral interview is for. It's not a quiz. It's your chance to tell your story. This is so important. When an interviewer asks you, tell me about a time when, believe me, they're not just making small talk. They're using your past performance as a way to predict your future success. They want to see how you think, how you handle a tough situation, and what kind of impact you actually had. The classic. This question trips up so many candidates. It totally feels like a trap, doesn't it? But really, it's an opportunity. It's your chance to show that you're self-aware, that you're resilient, and that you actually learn from your mistakes. The trick is having a structured way to answer it. And that's where the STAR method comes in. Honestly, this is your secret weapon for pretty much any behavioral question. First, you set up the situation to give some context. Then you explain the task. What were you responsible for? Next, you detail the specific actions you took to handle it. And finally, and this is the most important part, you share the result. And don't just say, the project was a success. No, you say, I refactored the legacy code, which reduced our server costs by 15%. That structure turns a rambling story into a powerful example of your impact. So, let's wrap this up. Here's your blueprint. First, commit to that structured 12-week plan. Second, go deeper than just algorithms and truly master core principles like SOLID. Third, get absolutely crystal clear on the difference between high-level design, the what, and low-level design, the how. And finally, use that STAR method to turn your experiences into compelling stories about your impact. Look, the path to a senior engineering role at a top company is a major challenge. There's no doubt about it. But it's a solvable problem. It takes discipline, it takes strategy, and it takes a real understanding of what they're actually looking for. You've got the blueprint now. The only question is, are you ready to start building?